City of Costa Mesa stepping up their emergency preparedness game. The question is, are you? Welcome to the Costa Mesa Pettis Perspective. My name is Jeff Pettis, and thank you for watching as always. And before I forget, please like and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. I would appreciate it. And so tonight we are talking about the City Council meeting yesterday, April 5th. Today's April 5th. So the council meeting the 4th Tuesday evening. I'm going to do things a little bit differently tonight in that I typically, when I've been watching these and participating and viewing these council meetings, I like to pick out items, obviously, that are important, that I think are important to the citizens in general. And there's always one or two things that stand out to me that are important. They might be big, they might be small. In this case, one of the things that didn't get a lot of time, but it was a big weighty issue, was the new business item number 1. That's the new business section, follows the consent calendar portion of the council meeting. And what that item was the City of Costa Mesa's local hazard mitigation plan. And they had the woman on there who they've hired, who had took over relatively recently, I think 8 months ago. And they've been working on this plan, I think they said since 2019. And they've completed I think they call it the draft, or it's the final version of their mitigation plan, which spans between now and 2023 through 2028. And it is a weighty document. I actually read it prior to the meeting, and they didn't read the whole thing in the meeting. They did some comments on it as the council voted and they adopted it. And it is, I would recommend going. You can find it online on the city website. And really what it was encouraging for me to see that there is not every city in the county has a plan, a mitigation plan for emergencies. We are one of them, so I was glad to see that. I was glad to see the time, effort, and money put into it. It is a weighty read. So really, when I read through it, there were a lot of things that stood out to me. There was a lot of demographic information through the city, who's affected, what parts of the city have what demographics. Really, you can distill it down to they weighted all the different likelihoods of the different emergencies that might happen. The two major ones that would impact any of us are earthquakes and civil unrest. That's really, a big portion of it came down to that. And also FEMA will get involved. So it's a plan, and it's better than not having a plan. So what it got me thinking about was I'm gonna move off the council's plan a little bit, and it got me thinking about preparedness in general. And one thing that I've really never talked about on this channel, one thing that I really don't talk about publicly or really even privately, except for the people that I live with and some of my close friends, is preparedness and what it means to me. And I decided I am going to talk about it tonight. This isn't for my friends that are in the preparedness community or people that are into the subject or people that are well prepared. This is for people that don't have a lot of information, because what I think is that most people are not adequately prepared for emergencies. You can decide what emergency you want to prepare for. Everybody should be prepared for an emergency. And I think it is, as the man of this house and as a member of the community, to me, I view it as my responsibility to be prepared for anything that might come my way, because honestly, I don't plan on relying on the government to save me if anything happens. Not to say that the government can't help, that the government won't get involved. I'm not talking about conspiratorial, apocalyptic, zombie apocalypse stuff that people love to crow about when we start talking about preparedness. I'm talking about being a smart, responsible man, leader of your household, leader of your community. And it is incumbent to the people, if everybody can do their part in being prepared for themselves, then we can rely on each other as a community to get through whatever might come our way. And that is where I fall on these things. So personally, I take it very seriously in my life, for my family. I could talk for hours on this subject. I've been focused on it, I'd say, for the better part of the last 15 years for my own little world here. I could talk water, food, security, medical care in austere environments, communications. Do you leave? Do you stay? The whole nine. I mean, it gets very, very involved. I'm not going to do that for the purposes here. What I do want to talk about is the water, food, and security. I'm going to try and keep it brief, and I think it's important and a worthwhile topic. When you're thinking about water, and one of the things I wanted to just backtrack a little bit, there were some surveys taken at the end of this hazard mitigation plan. If you read through it, the last, 9, 10, 12 pages, they surveyed the public on a lot of different subjects, and one of them was, I don't quote me exactly on this, but it was like, do you not, how adequately do you think you have 3 days worth of food and water saved up for an emergency? And I think the majority of the respondents said, yes, I have that, but it was like not everybody. So what that tells me is not everybody has enough water and food for 3 days. And that is woefully, 3 days I think is the standard. They say the government recommends everybody have 3 days of water, food, and candles, whatever. If there is something that happens major, whether it's a major earthquake, major civil unrest, I'm not going to go into all the different possibilities. You decide what you want to prepare for. 3 days is woefully inadequate for food, water, and security. They say the average, depends on where you look, the average that everybody should have 2 gallons of water per person per day. So, if you have 2 people, that's obviously 4 gallons a day. Really, the minimum should be 3 gallons of water. If you think about drinking, if you think about washing your dishes and some mild hygiene, not taking a full shower, obviously, but cleaning your body, which is important in an emergency situation, it's really better to think about it in terms of 3 gallons of water per day per person. So in this family right now, I have 4 people here total for now. My eldest one, my middle child is still here. So 4 people, that's 3 gallons. That's 12 gallons per person per day. Quick math, I had to even jot it down for you. So that's 84 gallons of water weekly. And I like to think of things in terms of 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So really for 2 weeks, 4 people here, and my estimate is it's 168 gallons of water for 4 people for 2 weeks. And that's not 3 or 4 flats of water from Costco stacked up in the corner of your garage. For me, that's 3 55-gallon barrels of food-grade water barrels stored in the garage on 2x4s. They don't leach, the chemicals don't leach into the water. And when I first started getting into this, I struggled with this. I'm like, wow, water. How you ever, really, long story short, we live in a desert basically next to an ocean, arid climate next to an ocean, filled with salt water that's undrinkable. Not a lot of natural water near us. There is some, but if you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of water, and you need to go longer than that, we have bigger problems than most of us are going to get through. So I'm feeling solid about having 2 weeks worth of water. That's 3 55-gallon barrels of water for 4 people for 2 weeks. The way it's going to happen is the first 3 days of a disaster, people are going to be throwing water bottles at each other, helping each other out as they should in the community. That will run out. And they say, and this is the true, 3 days after everything runs out, it's going to be pandemonium. So 6 days into a disaster with no services, which isn't a long time, people are going to be in a bad way. So I'd want to be in a position where I can be in my home for 2 weeks without leaving for anything, for any reason. Now, if I needed to leave after 2 weeks, my water was out, you should also have a plan for that. I'm not going to get too much into it, but there are things you can do. I've decided instead of trying to store giant water tanks, which is not reliable, we don't have enough rain here for water catchment except for this season. There are ways to go out and find water. Now, it might not be drinkable water. Everybody should have some sort of water filtration. I'm going to get rid of Liberty here for a second. Sawyer, Sawyer, is Sawyer mini water filters, can filter many thousands of gallons of water. So if you find water, you get the water and bring the water back, and you can filter the water. Another thing is everybody should have a water bob. If the water is turned off, there's still going to be a lot of water in the system. the first thing you want to do is fill up your tub with water. That's another, 20, 30, 40 gallons worth of water. Enough water for 2 weeks, enough water to filter and bring back and find for you if it needed to go longer. That is where I sit with water. So if you think about it, most of us, I'd say 9 out of 10 people do not have enough water in their house in an emergency. Now, food is another obvious must-have in an emergency, and most people that are storing up food have, everybody's got 3 to 4, maybe a week's worth of canned food, SpaghettiOs, Top Ramen, whatever else around their house. So that would go really, really quickly. And having 2 weeks worth of food in your house and to me, in my preparedness plan for my family, again, to pretend that I would need to not leave outside for at least 2 weeks. You're going to have more than what's stored in your van. And also, canned goods do go bad after a year or two. It's good to have all that, rotate it, use it. Most people know those Wise food buckets. Those are a good thing to have. They're already prepared freeze-dried food. I won't go into the detail on it too much. They're usually already made up of different meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a bucket for 3 days a week. Those are great to have. For me personally, I'm just giving a couple things that I do. When you think about, let's pretend you have kids or you're with your family and you need to eat what you've eaten through what you need to in your house, in your pantry, and you need to start going into your emergency stores. Is my 9-year-old going to want to eat black bean enchilada rice from the Wise Food Company every night for 3 nights? Probably not. So I think this might sound silly to some, but you want to try and store what you enjoy eating, because that's going to be a nightmare if the power's down and everything's happening and it's stressful. What I chose to do I do have the MREs and I have the already made meals, but what I chose to do is I get the number 10 cans of individual ingredients. These are just examples where if you have enough things, this is just butter, strawberries, and turkey in this case, and I have all the vegetables, pasta, even milk, eggs, chocolate milk, pudding, biscuits, all that individual. You can mix and match and make a variety of different meals, and you would be surprised how good these things are when they're individually prepared. I've tested just about everything that I actually store. So that's just something that I do. This is the Emergency Essentials Company. This is Honeyville. This is a company out of Utah. They're not cheap, but the butter is actually only 10 years, but a lot of these things are 20-year shelf life. Look, the worst thing, the thing that I hope I will do someday is when all's said and done, I'm an old man, I get to throw all this stuff away or give it away or whatever it might be, and I hope I don't need it. But I can tell you one thing right now, there will not be a situation that occurs where I cannot give my kids and my wife water, food, and the last thing we're going to talk about is security, which look, I'm not going to be, everybody knows I'm a Second Amendment guy, whatever else, but I'm not going to get into I don't want to get into you got to have these kinds of guns, the whiz bang rah rah, which is fun, but I am going to stress how important security is in an environment that's an emergency, because people, when they can't feed their kids and they're thirsty and they're hungry, are going to do weird things. And the last thing I'm going to do is allow for anything to happen to any of my family or the ones that I love, that I'm responsible for. They're not going to have food taken out of their mouth, and they're not going to be unsafe because I wasn't able to protect them. So I do recommend that those of you that are willing to own a firearm or several firearms to protect yourself in the event of an emergency, you do so, get the proper training, safe gun handling, all that good stuff. It's important to have security to protect what's yours and those that you love. And most importantly, in an environment like that, it needs to be, you need to have a lot of ammunition stored up in the most common calibers, maybe 9mm, 5.56, 12 gauge shotgun. And no, I'll say that's 45, and this is 9mm. So 1,000 rounds of each is what I choose, but that's up to the individual. Last thing I'll say about security is that in an environment where money is of no value, things like ammunition are very good for bartering. Hey, I don't have enough food, but I got some 9mm. Will you trade me some bagels for a box of 9? And that's all I'm going to say about security. Although it's number 3 on my list, it's important as food and water in a lot of ways. So I thought it was important to talk about preparedness in the context of the city talking about their own preparedness plan. There's not going to be help coming if it was bad enough. You need to be able to prepare, and you need to be able to handle things on your own. Last thing I'm going to say is mindset. Again, know your neighbors. Don't be the lone wolf person. I have a plan with my direct neighbor here who's connected to me on the whole. We have the whole corner kind of agreeing on how things will go. And the last thing I'm going to say is it's when I do occasionally talk about this kind of thing, once in a while I heard it recently, was, whoa man, I'm going to just come to your house, dude. No, you're not. I don't say that to be the tough guy. I don't say that to be anything other than, no, you're not going to be coming to my house, because if you've not prepared, and I've prepared for my family and the ones that I've agreed upon in a group to be prepared with, there's not going to be anybody coming here to take food out of my kid's mouth, and it's just not going to happen. So it's important to know that. And anybody that did, I'm the most generous, helpful person there is, but what we're talking about is in an emergency environment where everybody's expected to take care of themselves so we can take care of each other, and that is the message here. So again, I won't talk about the stuff too much in the future. I just thought it was important to talk about tonight in the context of the emergency preparedness plan as put forth by the city of Costa Mesa. Most importantly, be kind to yourself, be good to each other. Together we can get it done. Bye for now.